This is from The Big Picture, How God is Fixing What's Gone Wrong. The section title is Love, and there are 3 subheadings. Starting with number 10. God never acts in self-interest. Love is not self-seeking, 1 Corinthians 13:5. God is looking for love with his intelligent creatures because he is love, and this means that in his very nature he is totally selfless. That's why God isn't a solitary guy. That's why there's not a supreme dictator at the helm of the universe, but rather a God community of 3 persons sharing responsibilities and taking joy in serving one another. If that sounds odd, think about the places in the Bible where Jesus talked about the Father and the Spirit. He says things like, "Father, may your name be glorified," and "the Spirit will be the one who will lead you into all truth." Later in Scripture, Paul said that the Father exalted Jesus to the very highest place in the universe, even above his own throne. The embodiment of supreme love, which does not operate on the basis of self-interest, is the very engine of life for the universe. So when God turns to his creation, he continues to be defined by selflessness. With us, as within the God community, he never acts in self-interest. He never acts primarily for his own benefit. Before he acts in any given situation, his thought is never what will be best for himself, but what will be best for us. The primary principle of God's kingdom is not survival of the fittest, but protection of the weakest. It is not self-exaltation, but self-sacrifice. In fact, it's encoded right into the most famous Bible verse. God so loved the world that he gave. That's the very essence of love. 11. Loving actions are defined by selfless motives. At the beginning, the scripture for this one is, "If I gave everything I have to poor people, and if I were burned alive for preaching the gospel but didn't love others, it would be of no value whatever." 1 Corinthians 13:3. At the beginning of 1 Corinthians 13, Paul lays out in explicit detail that none of our good words or deeds matter if we don't have love. Rock-solid faith, vast amounts of knowledge, kind speech, extreme generosity, even giving your life as a martyr, all of these good and useful things amount to nothing, Paul says, if we don't have love. Since selflessness is the essence of love, if what we are saying or doing is in any way self-interested, it's worthless. It's actually not love. Paul goes on to say that love is not self-seeking, which means that anything we do, good or bad, with a selfish agenda doesn't qualify as love. Loving actions are defined by a selfless motive, not by the action itself or its outcome. Thus, the very same action may be deemed loving in one situation and unloving in another. Administering a narcotic for the purpose of relieving extreme physical pain may be considered loving, while giving it to a teenager in the hopes of turning them into a junkie who will purchase your supply would be considered terribly unloving. The motivation defines the nature of the act. This means that whenever God is acting in the interest of others, whatever he does is loving, no matter how it may appear at the time. Since his motives are always selfless, his actions are always loving. And 12. Loving actions are not necessarily nice, and nice actions are not necessarily loving. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Proverbs 27:6. On October 14, 1987, 18-month-old Jessica McClure fell down a well in Midland, Texas. For the next 55 hours, the world waited to see what would happen to the little girl. After digging a parallel shaft down next to the well, rescuers were initially unable to pull her out. As they were preparing for a second attempt, the doctor told the paramedic, "You may have to break her legs, her hips, or her feet, but as long as her head, neck, and back are intact, we can fix the rest. Do whatever it takes, break her bones if you have to, but get her out." And he did. Baby Jessica survived. Now nobody is going to go around telling people that it's okay to intentionally break children's bones as a matter of course. In fact, lots of people are in jail today because they have intentionally broken a child's bones. What made the difference in this situation was the motivation. At that critical time, breaking Jessica's bones was the loving thing to do, given the alternative. We often define something as loving if it's nice and it doesn't hurt someone or offend their feelings. What's more, our society is increasingly labeling words and deeds as unloving if they cause offense or uncomfortable feelings. But the Bible warns us to think a little more deeply than this, for it says that enemies may treat us nicely for bad reasons, and that hurtful things may sometimes come from true friends. Loving actions aren't necessarily nice, and nice actions aren't necessarily loving. That's why we cannot determine whether an action is truly loving unless we know the motive.